Friday morning, can't control it. Fired up and counting every minute. Hands are shaking, eyes are burning. The time has come, yeah, this is not a warning. The week was just so long, we had to let it go. Our problems disappeared, we're not tied up anymore. The weekend is here. Sunday calls, we are sick and tired of it. Up and down, can you feel it? Up and down.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Kurt Johansson show. It's Kurt. Today, two special guests, kind of taking myself out of my comfort zone. I've done tag teams, I've done trios, and when I've been speaking to both guests, I was like, why don't you just interview us together? Learn about their careers at the same time. So hopefully it'll work and not be a complete shit show. I'm sure it won't. My guest today, Aliss Ink, Marcus of Man. Thank you for coming on.
Hi, thank you for having us.
No, really excited, and thanks for testing the testing my interviewing skills, I guess.
Pleasure to be here.
It seems weird, obviously we've just hit record, but I think we've been speaking 15 minutes already, which is always a good show. So I'm sure the content that we're going to speak about is going to be great. So again, thanks for coming on the show, and thank you for everybody that's interacting on Twitter with all the retweets, people listening on YouTube or audio. If you've not already, hit like on this video, hit subscribe, and keep recommending those guests. I know it's a lot harder with ScandiGraps. The amount I've had to use Instagram and Facebook a lot more than I ever did for podcasting, because people don't really have that as much. But Alice, have you got a Twitter yet?
No, I have not.
You need to get a Twitter.
I've been telling you, you should get a Twitter fixed.
People keep telling me.
How are you going to find out what Donald Trump is thinking in the morning?
Well, or is that still a thing?
Unfortunately, yeah.
That alone. That alone.
You're not selling this to me very well right now. Sorry. But
the thing with Twitter, I just feel like in terms of professional wrestling, it's so easy for people to get more noticed out there and get outside the bubble. I think with Instagram, people scroll and you can't really share as much. Facebook, people only share the occasional thing, but with Twitter, people retweet all the time. So when it's different GIFs or stuff like that, I think it helps. So different podcasters that I know through Twitter, they messaged on about this ScandiGraps thing I'm doing. And when I was on about, I plan on going to Denmark, I plan on going to Sweden. And they're like, well, can we jump on? You could vlog it. We can try and do content on there. And I think the wrestling world's just more open to try and promote other people and to get that exposure. So get a Twitter.
what you're saying is that this should be my first Twitter post.
Yes.
That will be.
Good.
Yes, your first Twitter post. I'll make a little graphic and as instructed by Kurt, here I am, and then coming soon. This is
Brilliant.
So, where to even start? Marcus, how did you get into pro wrestling to begin with?
Well, to begin with, when I started watching it in the first place.
Either or. When did you start watching?
So I was at a friend's house. I come from Great Britain. As you might be able to hear, I don't have such a Swedish accent yet. I'm working on that one. I moved here about 14 years ago. So I was born and grew up in the Isle of Man. It's not just a gimmick. I am from the Isle of Man. So there's a thing on Sky Sports TV because wrestling wasn't really on terrestrial television when I grew up. So I went around to a friend's house. I might have been about 6 years old. And I'm pretty sure my first wrestling memory is seeing Macho Man Randy Savage dropping the elbow off the top rope onto a prone enhancement talent fellow there. I didn't know his name, but when I saw Macho Man and all his colors, his attitude, how he did his thing, and his interview after the match, I was like, I've got to see more. I've got to know what he's doing. And then about 10 minutes after, me and my friend, who was over at his house, we were jumping off our wall into bushes, pretending we were the Macho Man. Since then, it was must have been around 1991. I was hooked.
Yeah, the charisma from there. I kind of got, although I was born and started watching the later era, I mainly focused on all the videos. So those early WrestleManias, that's what I loved. So when I was a kid going to school, and I think it was when WCW started invading WWF, and you saw the NWO brought back. I was so excited because of people like Hulk Hogan, and everyone's like, He's a old has-been, he's crap. I'm like, but for me,
no, you not see what he's doing.
yeah. But because I hadn't seen him for ages, I was still thinking it's the guy that's facing Randy Savage or the guy that's facing like the Warrior, and it was a massive change. But Alice, what about yourself?
Well, I got into wrestling a completely different way. Have absolutely not had any relationship to wrestling whatsoever, really, until it's showing up at the tryouts. I've been to a few live shows before with a friend. Thought it was fun and we had a good time. I was like, well, we can do that. We've done martial arts for a long time, both of us. So, so I come from a martial arts background, obviously.
Yeah.
But I got into the triad, which I thought was just a one-off occasion for testing out.
Play wrestler for the day.
Yes, which sounded like a great idea. It was my friend who put us down on the coming list. Well, that sounds weird.
Your friend put you down
on the attendance list. Yes, applicants. There you go. Thank you.
Is that going to be the first tweet? My friend put me down on the coming list.
Well, put that one to the side for now. Anyway, and I got there, and the first thing they tell us is, "Oh, this is going to be a 5-hour tryout." I was like, "Shit, this was not what I signed up for." I also had a dislocated toe from like a week before, like completely torn the wrong way from kicking into an elbow from a sparring session. So it's like I can't wear shoes. I'm just here for having a fun time for a little bit, and now it's a tryout. But what the hell? I'm gonna embrace it. So that's what I decided on doing, and like within the first 30 minutes, I was definitely hooked. It was so much fun.
The fact that you've got a dislocated toe, it's facing the other way, and you're like, you know what I'll do to recover? Let's go try out wrestling. That'll be fun.
That's not uncommon for her whatsoever.
Well, the dislocated toe was a one-off thing, though.
That's true, yeah.
But training with injuries, I mean, obviously, it's quite common both in martial arts, in that world, and in wrestling. It does happen, and you push through it and you make it work. So,
like, what martial arts was you doing? Am I right in thinking jiu-jitsu was one of them?
Yes, definitely is. For the last 10 plus years, I've been doing jiu-jitsu, karate, and kickboxing. And before that, I did regular boxing.
Yeah.
And I've also done a little bit of Iaido and Aikido when I was a teenager.
So no messing with you then?
Well, I mean, you're more than welcome to try. But I'm not too worried about people messing with me. That's the problem.
Nah, I bet you aren't. Somebody starts in the pub and Max like, you sort it. They've got me the wrong order. You can do it. Yeah. So, like, what was it about the tryout that just hooked you into wrestling?
I think it was a lot of aspects. Obviously, I love the athletic side of it. And that's very much in common what I've done previously. And a lot of things come quite natural. If you have done falls in jiu-jitsu, for example. Yeah. And it's a little bit tweaked, but it's basically the same. A lot of the holds are basically the same. And obviously kicking and striking is done differently, but it's still legs, it's still arms. They move a certain way. It's not that much of a difference. I can relate to a lot of like the movements and appreciate the other parts of it, like the teamwork behind it and how to get into the more the other stuff that you can't really do in like a proper sparring session. You won't be able to do full insecurity, for example. You rarely see that in a sparring session because it's not likely to happen. But when you have the positioning and you have the other aspects, like the acting on top of this, and it's extremely challenging, and that's what makes it fun. So, I mean, the scene from the tryouts was mainly the dancing part of it. Put it that way, when you're trading, that's the part that got me hooked the first, I think. You're giving and you're taking and you're making something, and you're making the added layer of it actually looking as real as possible. And I find that fascinating, and I still do. That's why I'm still here.
How did you adjust with like maybe holding those strikes? Like you said, you just dislocated your toe from kicking somebody's elbow, and now you're going to wrestling where not everybody likes that stiff shot. So how did you adjust with that, like holding back?
Well, I mean, I think, and I have my sensei to thank for this. He's very much specific on techniques in especially kicking. So pulling the kicks has never been a big issue. Because you're supposed to have that control anyway. You should be able to stop it at any given second, basically. And he's been very much pushing those parts of the techniques. Punching, I find very much harder. So that is not quite the same. You're kind of like there you're supposed to always punch through to get the power behind it, and that's very hard to adjust, I find. So they tend to be a bit stiff, so I rarely do them in shows. But I'm working on it.
Marcus, like, how did you get involved in like the training side of wrestling then?
Oh, in the training, yeah. I thought we went back to the tryout because I was one of the trainers at her tryout. But we can get into that later.
Yeah.
So, as I say, I grew up in the Isle of Man. There was no wrestling there whatsoever. We heard rumours of that All Star are going to come over and going to bring over Gangrel and such for the shows. But it didn't happen so much. There wasn't any live wrestling to see and not so much training. One experience that I did have, because I was obsessed with wrestling from a young age, but I didn't really appreciate it when it happened, but I can look back at it now and like, oh, he was someone who was influential in my life. The trainer of the Dynamite Kid, a British Bulldog, Ted Betley, is a fellow who trained a lot of wrestlers in Northern England. He had retired and moved to the Isle of Man in the 80s. And my parents used to take me to a place called Bradder Glen. I used to go there, and everyone would talk about the rumor of, oh, that's the old wrestler. He lives on the hill. He walks up the mountain twice a day. It was
I'm picturing like Karate Kid, Mr. Miyagi kind of thing.
It was kind of like that, but I didn't appreciate that at the time. So when I'd see him and talk to him as an 8-9-year-old, I'd be like, "Oh, do you know Hulk Hogan? Do you know these guys? Have you done this?" And he's like, "No, I've trained this person. I've trained Dynamite Kid and Johnny Smith, and they're wrestling all over." But he did used to show a few moves, mostly on my dad, showing how wrestlers can pretend nothing hurts, and then they can touch a certain part of the finger, and the whole body kind of goes limp. So I met him first, which kind of like built up my interest and was like, oh, I definitely want to be a wrestler. I was one of these kids at school as well who, when the careers day people come and ask, what do you want to do? I stood up and said I wanted to be a wrestler, with a lot of people laughing at the sides. But I thought, well, I've got to give it a go. I've got to try something. Yeah. So I found out through, do you remember the old Power Slam wrestling magazines?
Yeah.
Comeback. There was something I used to buy every month that they come out and read all the articles in there, all the pictures. And there was an advertisement for the FWA wrestling school, and they're based down on the south coast in Portsmouth. So they were having a weekend, like a long weekend kind of try to be a wrestler weekend camp with a guest trainer. I think it was in 2003 I went down to my first one.
Yeah.
Down to Portsmouth, flew over, went down to the south coast, and got to train with Mark Sloan, James Ty, and the guest trainer was Doug Williams, that wrestling one.
Wow.
So that was my first like introduction to wrestling, running the ropes in a real wrestling ring, taking the back bumps, learning to do the basic moves, body slams, elbow drops and such. So that was my first like real introduction to wrestling.
That's some traveling for you as well.
It was like I knew if I was going to do something, if I wanted to make this happen, I can't just sit on the Isle of Man and tell everybody I want to be a wrestler. I've got to look up how I'm going to do this, how I'm going to contact the people, and how I'm going to get them. Yeah. I was 17 for the first camp I went to, 18 on the second one. And in the year I was 18, then All Star Wrestling were planning, I guess, summer tour over to the Isle of Man. So they were going to run every single Monday, I think every Monday in August, and like one super show first week of September. And I was working in a health food shop at the time, and I had a gym membership and such. And I thought, right, I'm going to fix things around. I'm going to have every Monday afternoon off, work my schedule, and go not badger the wrestlers and annoy them. But that was basically my plan: blag my way into the place and try and get contact and talk with people.
Yeah. When did that debut finally happen then?
So that was the end of that summer, the first Monday Super Show they had. I was allowed to be in a battle royal for All Star Wrestling in I think first week of September 2005. It was 15 years ago now.
I'm just having a look at from what I can think, you had Robbie Brookside, Robbie Dynamite, you had Drew McDonald, Frankie Sloan, and when you think of like legends of British wrestling, their names are
so many people there who I think afterwards I had so much help with, and people were so kind and so willing. The weeks beforehand, because I talked first, I sat in the audience for the first show. I sat next to Brian Dixon because I knew who he was. I was like, I think I recognize that guy, and I started talking to him about the matches, and he was like, all right, we can fix it. We'll put you on in the battle royal at the end of the thing, at the end of the season. I was like, oh, great, Brian. And the week after they came on the Monday, I was in the afternoon, and I was in the ring and could work out with Dean Allmark was there, Kid Cool, and who else was there? Yeah, and Robbie Dynamite. And age-wise, they're only 2 or 3 years older than I was. Obviously, so much more wrestling experience, but they could take the time and go through things with me, and I could have like a mini-hour wrestling training, which I appreciate because that's their downtime, and they're like, "Oh, well, see if this kid can do this."
It just makes me laugh because every time I do an interview, Dean Allmark gets mentioned as either somebody wants to train with, favorite match, or actually trained with. And when I interviewed him for my anniversary show, I joked about all that because there's somebody where he's only ever wrestled in Australia, more in the Perth region, and he was like, "Yeah, I want to come to the UK. I want to train with Dean Allmark," and it's just like everybody just knows Dean.
Dean and like Letitia, his wife, is Brian's daughter. They were a real big help in the beginning there. Dean wasn't there when it was the show there in September, but he worked with me like a couple of times in the ring beforehand. And other lads there, but they didn't have to do that. They didn't have to put the time in. They could have been like, "Oh, we're going to go off and eat and that and do what we want to do," but they took the time, and they might have thought it was funny that I was very over enthusiastic and trying to show them all the bumps I knew how to do. And they were like, "You don't have to do this. You don't have to do this much stuff. You're going to be in a battle royal. Calm down." But it was a really good first experience for me doing that back then, 2005, in the Isle of Man.
Yeah, definitely. Whilst we're on the topic of Isle of Man and wrestling, then I'm right in thinking MegaSlam came over and you worked a couple of MegaSlam shows.
Yeah, so I did that quite recently. Hoping to go over again when all the Corona business is kind of cleared up. But after because I took more serious training in Stockholm when I came here, we can get maybe a bit more into that later on. When I felt that I'd reached a good enough level in my wrestling ability, worked with enough people, had enough experience here, I had it as a goal. I was like, I want to come back to the Isle of Man, and I dovetail that with a show that's coming over. And the art of wrestling is promotion. How can we promote this thing the best we can? So do a big promotion, do a big fight feel about it. Like the person who's gone away and living in another country is coming back to defend the honor of the Isle of Man and be like a hero babyface. So that's what I've tried to do every time, with help from the promoters and help local media there on the island, because on an island nation it's a very kind of different thing, a different way of thinking, and they're proud of the people who've come from there and achieved something somewhere else. So with that, I've managed to wrestle in front of the biggest crowds that I've done matches in front of, and it's been a really surreal experience to go back there as a babyface and be like, I'm coming here wrestling in front of 1,000 people. Whereas here in Sweden, I'm a heel and people hate me.
All I'm picturing you, like when you've been that big baby face walking down the aisle, is just thinking to those teachers and everybody that laughed at you, just
Yeah,
look at me now.
Exactly. That's the feeling that I have, and it's like when I see, and it makes time they have like the autograph sessions afterwards. There, people come up and do that, and it was one of those surreal moments that one of the other kids in the class who were like, oh, you're going to be a wrestler. Yeah, this is a big joke. He was there with his children, like 12, 13 years afterwards.
Yeah.
And saying, oh, can you just sign this for us? I'm like, yeah, sure, definitely, I can do that for you, mate. And I'm just thinking in the back of my mind, it's like, yeah, I've done something here.
Redemption.
Nah, like congrats. Like going back to the tryout then, Alice, like when was that?
2018.
Yeah, sounds about right.
Yeah, it would have been that.
Did you think then, like again, all this badass martial arts background, you're going in just as a bit of fun, and now here you are, career in professional wrestling, sat on the couch doing an interview with somebody that was one of the like hosting it.
I mean, I wasn't even sure I was going to get a call back. So, to be fair, it's like, well, I mean, I was kind of out of my element, even if I thought I'd done okay, but it's still very much different world to what I'm used to. So,
yeah.
But I had fun. I was like, okay, it's just going to be for one day and I'm going to have fun, and that'll be fine as well. But then, well, they kind of wanted to
Keep you
give
around.
me a chance. I guess it worked out.
We had different plans. We were looking for like the stars of the future. Who was going to be our next stars of the future? You were thinking, this is fun. I'll try wrestling for a couple of hours. And we were like, we would like to invest time and invest thinking and put the promotion machine behind this person. So you had some decisions to make, really.
Yeah. And I realized that, and I was like, oh, wait, now I actually have to decide, do I want to do this for real? Because I can't do anything half-assed. That's not nature. So, but I decided this was worth a shot, and took some management to make it work. But just, go there, be there every week, see what you can make of it.
Yeah.
And I mean, just find it, the more I learned, the more fun it became as well. So, and frustrating at times, because I mean, obviously you can't be good at everything all the time, which is, you have to, some things are harder to learn. And especially the things that are similar to martial arts is obviously easy to pick up. The things that are different though, like don't cover up, show your face, up with the neck. I mean, all those things, the small details that make it wrestling and make wrestling good.
Yeah.
Those are the parts that are actually hardest to get the grasp of. So it's been an experience.
I'm gonna put you on the spot, Marcus. Then, like, what was your first thoughts like when you'd seen Alice at the trial? Then,
first, all right, I had a list of names and numbers, so I rated her down. I was like, coordination, 5 out of 5. Physical, but 5 out of 5. Look. 5 out of 5. Wrestling knowledge, 0. This will take some work. It's like she has to learn to slow down. That it's not a fight. That there's a lot more to it than what it looks like on TV. A lot more has to be thought about, and it's good if you have a good knowledge of what you want to do to be able to learn. Okay, this has been done before. We could use this. They did this spot in the 80s. This worked then.
And I was basically, what is?
Like, when do I get to kick people in the head?
Didn't take that long, fairness.
But of all the people at the tryout, because we had a tryout there, the plan was to build the future for Stockholm Wrestling. The idea at that tryout was to have 8 people who we wanted to focus with. From the 8, maybe 4 of them would stay the whole term, and from that 4, we'd have the future of the company. And the Aliss Ink character was born then. We saw her look and how she moved in the ring. We were like, this is something that our crowd would like to see, can see themselves in, and something that Swedish Wrestling sorely needs right now, and we still don't know how far you can go. We see there's limitless potential.
Well, let's hope Corona lightens up a bit,
Wow.
so you get the show on the road again.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think Corona's been ruining everything for everybody. But there you are, being part of the tryout, like as one of the coaches. But what was your first involvement in Swedish wrestling then?
So when I moved to Sweden, it was 2006, and there was no wrestling scene here. There's no wrestling to speak of, and I had it in the back of my mind. It was sort of, I'd moved here for a new start, a new way of thinking. So, and a part of me was like, well, okay, wrestling is going to be a part of what I did before. I'm going to start something new here.
Yeah.
So I found a whole new job, a different field, and started learning Swedish was my priority. And on the side of that, I was doing boxing and kickboxing. I thought, well, I like wrestling. I'll watch it and keep up with what's going on. But I've got a new life now, a new goal. I'm on a new path. Wrestling won't be the thing I'm going to be doing. And I'd talk myself into that, and I thought I'd convince myself. But as we all know, it's like when you're in, it's like the mafia. You don't get out. You have it in your blood. I read a lot of wrestling books, and one of them was that influenced me a lot was William Regal's The Golden Mile, which had spoke a lot about British wrestling, about people who I'd met on the way as well coming up, and his story and his way of how his redemption as well was, how he was at such a low point and made his way up because he had it and he had the determination. But reading that, I got a lot inspired. I was watching it more as well on the internet, and I thought I'm going to look and see what is going on in the Swedish wrestling scene.
Yeah.
So Stockholm Wrestling, they were having shows. They were running things quite close to where I was. And I went on the website and they had an email to the training. So I emailed them, and they didn't have tryouts and such at that point.
Yeah.
You just wrote a little bit about your backgrounds, and they said if you were going to be able to turn up or not. So I turned up at basically the start of their term in 2013. But as I said, I've been training boxing quite a lot beforehand, and I started like intensively training that before, thinking like I've got to be in the best shape that I'm in if I'm going to go and start in wrestling training. And I turned up there, and it was a strange one at the start of the wrestling training. I had a lot of good people there training me, but a lot of the other trainees were just they'd seen a couple of things on TV, and they thought, oh, this is what wrestling is. I'm going to do Hurricane Run as my first day in. And
that's the first thing I had in my head, because I've seen people do it where they're like,
you probably see,
around.
they see a lot of things and they all turn up. I was there, and there was like 7 other people, and one other guy who's now gone on to be like, he's called Johansson. You might have heard of him on the Scandi wrestling scene. It was me and him there, kind of at the same as like looking at each other, thinking like, okay, we kind of know what we're doing, but this guy's going to do Hurricane Runners. This guy does 3 press-ups and falls down. This guy runs the ropes and nearly breaks his neck. So all the other people kind of dropped off after 2-3 weeks. And it was me and the guy who's now Johansson, Frederick is his name. We stayed, and we were the 2 who kind of trained that term out. And we had a wrestler called Ken Malmsteen. I don't know if you know him.
Yeah.
He's the head trainer there. The guy called TNT. The one who's called PT, and Trim. Those are the 4 guys who really got me started in Swedish wrestling here, like training, learning the ropes, getting to know like the Stockholm wrestling and Scandinavian style.
What was your first thoughts on Scandinavian wrestling then when you first saw it?
I thought it was like there is a lot of like new ground here which has to be broken. It's like someone can have a Shawn Michaels type character and do a lot of the same mannerisms, because this crowd here has not grown up watching wrestling.
Yeah.
This crowd doesn't know advanced matches, advanced kind of things, or follow through a whole storyline. You can do a lot of things completely new here. So when I saw the shows, it was kind of primitive, maybe the best way to say it. It was primitive and a lot of room for expansion to teach the audience by using things that we've seen in the wrestling world over the past 20 years. Could be used here and get people involved. And yeah, if you had your wits about you and think how you could use it, it could climb quite well in the Swedish wrestling scene.
Yeah, and that's something obviously you've done for the fact that you're helping with running the like the tryouts and things like that. So how long did it take for you to be given more of a like a leadership role in Stockholm wrestling?
It took a couple of years, and for the whole process to kind of move along, I had to have a lot more matches, not only in Stockholm but in other places. Be there at the training, see how other people are doing things.
Yeah.
Learn myself, learn from other trainers, guest trainers coming in. But it took a couple of years, and then having a strong interest for like the storytelling and the booking aspect of it as well. Trying to book smaller promotions within Stockholm wrestling.
Yeah.
To have that, and then just being around, having experience, putting the time in and putting the effort in. Whereas others maybe would think, okay, I've done this to a certain level. We're not professionals doing it as a full-time job, and other people lose interest.
Yeah.
But I find if it's your passion, then you'll keep doing it anyway and keep finding a way.
Am I right in thinking you've been working like GBG and Let's Go at the beginning as well?
Yeah, GBG Wrestling and Let's Go Wrestling was my sister promotion to Stockholm Wrestling. So I was kind of given that as a trial thing to run while running the trainings. So I had Let's Go Wrestling and See It Live Wrestling. Because I had a concept whereby we should do something focused straight to a family audience, because Stockholm Wrestling was very much skewed to it's adults only at the shows. At nightclubs, pub venues for a crowd who's drinking alcohol, rowdy.
Sounds my scene.
Sounds like ICW or the old like ECW way of thinking. So I was like, well, we've got that market on the table there. We've got that. We're doing that. What about, we've got a training facility. We've got like lots of families going through the door at the training facility. We're sharing with other people. We could use this and run shows for family entertainment. So that was the idea with Let's Go Wrestling. And also a way to get our new talent who are coming up, who are training, to have their first matches planned in a way whereby they've got an audience that they're working in front of. It's not like training, but if something goes wrong or something not exactly to plan, it's only a small audience. It's a good place to learn. And for me as well as a booker, I thought Let's Go Wrestling was a good way for me to get my creativity across, and also play Adam Rose's theme tune as much as I wanted to. Play that at the start and intermission and at the end of the show.
You really wanted to be a Rosebud, didn't you?
Well, I kind of did, but I thought it felt a good atmosphere. Like the Let's Go Wrestling theme tune, as it was named on my MP3 file, is basically it is Adam Rose's theme.
Alice, was Let's Go your debut?
Yes.
Yeah, am I right in thinking it was against this man, tag team match, and you teaming with Endakara?
That is correct.
Research
I'm
paid off.
Good research.
How did you find that?
I mean, since it was the first match ever, of course I was extremely nervous. But it was so much fun once it got started, because I did a run up before the match.
Yeah.
I was sitting in the audience at the start of the show, and did a run up and stopped some heels from doing mean things.
Oh yeah, you did a run in at the start of the show. Yeah, of course you did.
Well, you booked it. Well, so I got to start like saving the day and having the kids there, and I mean, obviously the kids thought it was really fun, and that kind of gave me energy for like going backstage, fix myself up, and then do the match. So, and it was really fun. I think as far as I can remember, it went according to plan the whole way through. Kids loved it. I mean, adults had a good time as well. So yeah. I mean, obviously a lot of things to learn if I watch back at it. But that's kind of how it goes. You know, we all have to start somewhere. So yeah.
Is that when you thought, like, was there any question if you was going to stay in wrestling after that? Because obviously you may be enjoying the training, but then when you're actually having to put the performance aspect in front of an audience, that can just change somebody's like mindset completely. Was there any doubt if you
I was
thought,
already gone by that point, so yeah.
already addicted?
It was no looking back. But I mean, being in front of an audience is quite different in wrestling, though. I mean, it's one thing if you're there for if you have a fight,
Yeah.
and it's you, it's the opponent, it's the referee, and that's it. You zoom out the audience. You don't have to bother with that at all. I mean, you keep a straight face and you no sell obviously everything that gonna hurt. Like I don't know how much, but I mean, but you try to not make anything show. And wrestling is so much the opposite to those aspects.
Yeah.
So being in front of an audience and like interacting with them, and that's something I still work with. But I mean, that makes wrestling what it is, and it makes it so much fun to do.
So how did you feel when you got to make that Stockholm wrestling debut then in that more like adult environment?
Well, I mean, I had a guy named Stanislav do my introduction to that show. And and it was not he planned that by himself, I think, before doing it. We're still a bit backstage, and I'm not sure if anyone knew exactly what I was going to say. And I was absolutely laughing my ass off the moment before I was stepping out of the ring, because I mean, he's obviously a very comedic
he's great.
He's very good at that part. So but it was like, yeah, he was telling the audience how, because his tag team partner at the time was injured. So he had to find a replacement. And he was telling the audience how he'd walk into a bar and he told the people there that the one person who can drink more than me is going to be my tag team partner. And apparently that was me. So this is something that hasn't been a continuing story for my gimmick after this. But I mean, I wasn't quite expecting that, and I had so much fun listening to it. And I was like, oh, I have to keep a straight face now. It's like, all right, let's be badass. Because when I started out, it was very much like a straight-faced martial arts gimmick, MMA fighter type thing going on. So, but I went out and I knew that I have to do the first move absolutely perfect.
Yeah.
My character would never be believable anywhere, because I was starting. My first move in the ring would be a head kick.
Yeah.
And that was supposed to be basically a knockout. Well, it was a knockout. And the person was going to be pulled to the side and stuff. So it's like, all right, I'm going to have to go with it. And the person I was going to kick is now, I mean, he's done a little bit of wrestling, but he's basically a manager. So it's kind of like new territory to him as well. I was like, well, we're going to have to nail this. So I'm going to go for it. I'm hoping he's going to sell this and time it right. And he did a brilliant job, and it looked awesome look at the playbacks, and it's faultless basically.
Yeah, it's a highlight, I think.
Yeah. So quite happy with that, to be honest.
I bet.
But if that had not worked, everything would the cars would fallen down.
I wouldn't have been concerned of it not working though, because I can imagine anybody that sells one of your kicks, the second kick, they're not going to have a choice.
That one would have hit if you hadn't sold it. I can tell you that much. I was like, I can't hesitate in this one. So, but it was, it was well timed.
Because with Scandinavian wrestling, obviously with the females, there isn't as many competitors as there might be in different countries, and I'm sure you've seen it. You have all these old timers that was around in the 80s saying men shouldn't be in the ring with women for their matches because it's either not believable or it promotes like the domestic violence, or the man shouldn't hit the woman or anything like that. But from what I've seen through Scandinavia wrestling, they don't even bill it as like intergender wrestling. It's just wrestling. And I think, like, what's your thoughts on that? Because with everybody saying all those like closed-minded comments, at the end of the day, put you in the ring with half the people, you're gonna knock them out anyway. So if anything's like, you're just a shining example of why it's believable. And if you're telling the correct story, whereas yours is, I'm a badass, where even with not wrestling, if it's a shoot fight, I'm probably gonna kick your head in. So, like, what's your thoughts on the whole wrestling and the thoughts that some people think it should just be women versus women or men versus men. What do you find interesting about the mixture of it?
Well, I mean, my personal take on this is wrestling is built on contrast.
Yeah.
Being a man or a woman in the match is no different than being a smaller man versus a bigger man or anything else, really. So, I mean, it's built on contrast and it's built on this drive of the underdog one way or another to be the better person, to be the winner in this. So, I mean, I think to avoid that is missing a story from a pure from a pure business perspective. I think you're missing out on something that obviously works very well. I mean, who doesn't love a kick-ass woman in a movie, for example?
Yeah.
I mean, everybody loves that. And you broaden the audience. I mean, women are going to go there because they're going to look at they're going to want to be a part of that kick-ass, a spy or whatever. And the men are going to go there as well because they're going to think, yeah, this is pretty badass. Yeah. She's tough as shit. Mm-hmm. And I want to see this as well. So, I mean, you're broadening the audience. It's a good way of building stories. So just taking everything out of the context, I don't see why you wouldn't do it. But as you're saying, there are people that think this is wrong for a million of different reasons. And obviously you don't do intergender matches in MMA, for example.
Yeah.
And in all fairness, I mean, the weight classes are probably more important in this than the gender.
I think so.
Yeah. But obviously there is an aspect with testosterone or whatever. It's biology. Yeah. We all get it. But it is wrestling. So I think it's a missed opportunity. And I can tell you this much. I mean, a well-trained woman can definitely beat a man.
Yeah.
I've seen her sparring, and I've seen really big grown men going off with their noses bleeding, saying, "What just happened?"
Well, don't put your nose in the way of my foot. That's what I say.
Put that on a t-shirt.
I should actually. That's a good one. So I mean, yeah, it doesn't make sense to me. But I mean, old habits die hard, and obviously it's gonna be. Some promotions think this is something they want in a promotion.
Yeah, not at all. But we're all about making changes and breaking new ground and doing what's new. So we definitely we embrace it.
From a practical standpoint as well. I mean, we're 4 or 5 now active females in Sweden. So it's going to be quite boring if we only get to fight each other. I mean, don't get me wrong, I love these girls to death, but
there's only so many times you can face them.
Yeah,
it was just frustrating. Like, I remember seeing, I think it was like last year, and one of the people that had been in WWE that kept mentioning it was Santino Marella, which I found was hypocrisy because for part of his career, he dressed up as a female called Santina.
Santina. And
then after he made this comment, he then returned to WWE as Santina to be in the Women's Royal Rumble. Exactly. And I just thought, you can't say men can't fight women and women can't fight men, then dress up as a woman
to fight women.
Just to go get it's okay unless he can dress up as a woman and get a payday. And I just thought it was just so. When I couldn't help but laugh. I was like, that's just hypocrisy at its finest.
No, it's exactly. But he's also someone with like an MMA fighting background as well. So he must have also had. I mean, he's a trainer, I think, up in Canada. He must have had women fighters coming through who know how tough they are. And he's also somebody who won some of his matches by putting a snake sock puppet on and hitting him in the face. So to question the legitimacy of women wrestling fighters is very much, it's ridiculous itself, the argument.
Alice, do you reckon you'd take him in a shoot fight?
I take you in a shoot fight.
No, it's not me. You'd take me, Santino.
Well, I'm pretty sure this way, I'm not going to say I would definitely take him, but he would definitely hurt going away from it. Who the winner would be, let that be up in the car somewhere. But
yeah, don't worry, I'm not offering a fight, don't worry.
Yes, next week, Santino Marella. You hear what Aliss Ink said about you?
Can you imagine? So, going back to yourself, like Marcus, with the going through like Swedish wrestling and stuff like that, What have been some of your highlights and some of your favourite matches as you've been going through your career?
I've been like so many different cool things and experiences. We had the See It Live tour. I don't know if you've seen or heard anything about that. We had that like a year or so ago. So we decided to do like a touring company, like every weekend go to a different town.
Yeah.
Lots of fun, because then you get to live like more of the wrestling road, like lifestyle with the road trips, going to places like, okay, who do we have to pick up at this time? We've booked this airport to pick up this person at. Is it the right airport? No, it's the wrong one. Okay, how do we get to Västerås up to this way? So it's kind of like living as a wrestler, as it was getting to the town and seeing what's happening. Unfortunately, we didn't have so many people in the crowds for those shows, but the memories, the road stories, and the pictures was a highlight. Going to like shopping centers and being paid in bags of crisps and stuff like that. It's just like, yeah, we're living the life now, guys. So we head home. Yeah. But so many good like opponents and memories. As we were talking about like Stanislav before, I was in like a feud with him for a while, just doing comedy things. It was we had a match whereby Pokemon Go had just come out. And we were just going up, circling the ring, about to do our lockup, and he's like, "Wait, I have to." And he got his phone out of his pocket, and he was like, "Oh, there's a Charizard in here. Stop the match." And I'm like, there, my Royal British character, like, what is this idiot talking about? It's like moments like that. It's not like the big moves, the finish, the some stuff. It's like that's the stuff that people remember.
Yeah. Nah, I agree. Like, I enjoy all forms of wrestling, whether it is the high flying, the hard hitting, the comedy aspect, the chain wrestling. I think there's a room for all of it as long as your show's got that variety, and as long as it's telling that story. And for example, Sendai Girls came over to the UK, and when you're thinking of their roster with like Meiko Satomura, Tony Storm, Dash Chisako, Kaylee Ray, one of the matches that stood out for me was Session Moth Martina versus Aiga. Now Aiga, she's let's say a ghost. So think of like The Ring or Grudge, where it's the white face, the long black hair, the white dress. That's her. And she's wrestling Session Moth Martina, who just loves to drink and grind. And that was one of the highlights of the show. Like, I think at one point, Aiga chased Session Moth through the curtain, and then Aiga came running out scared because Session Moth was chasing her with a Hoover. Like, it was Ghostbusters trying to get the ghost up the Hoover, and without, like... And that was one of the highlights. That's one of the things that I speak so fondly of on that show was their match, despite being, it was Dash Chisako and Kaylee Ray before it, I think, and then it was Tony Storm and Meiko Satomura afterwards. And
it's good to sandwich that in between and have that. That's what wrestling fans want as well. They want to have a bit of variance, things, moments they remember, and then like the hard-hitting matches.
Yeah,
this is why you don't have to be typecast to one or the other. Like doing a lot of the comedy and the gimmicky type matches kind of helped me get a character that the audience recognized, so that when I became more of like a serious wrestler, like 2017, I think it was, I think I had like one of my best matches then. I got to main event. Stockholm Wrestling have one major show every year called There Will Be Blood.
Okay.
So There Will Be Blood 9 now. I main evented There Will Be Blood 666, we called it, the sixth one, against Solomon Street. I don't know if you've heard of him, from Finland.
Was that the Fans Bring the Weapons match?
That was the Fans Bring the Weapons match, whereby I was hitting the back with like a keyboard that someone had taken a lot of time by gluing on each and every individual key thumbtacks onto.
That's class. Do you reckon the airport would let me bring something like that for what is this? Just taking it to a wrestling match in Sweden, mate.
I think what we'd have to do is like bring you on a shopping spree to like dollar store or something around here before you go to the show, and you'd be like, right, I've got all this stuff now. What can I use it? But that match was the main event of the show. Lots of weapons, lots of violence, lots of blood, and complete chaos. But one of the defining moments with a lot of, it's like the pictures and the imagery that you have afterwards, when I've got like blood streaming down my face, got him in a leg lock with a crutch as well underneath this thigh, pulling up, with a manic look on my face. It's those are the kind of moments you'd be like, this is what I did this is what I did when I was a wrestler.
Now that's like, what was it like the night after when you're having a match like that?
The night after, well, the same night later on was a lot of arguments with certain people. But that's a big like come down from that kind of match. It was like the end of a feud and the end of like a big long storyline arc whereby my original opponent was injured. Someone really like stepped up for that. But it was a big like end of year show for us, and I think it was like in November of that year. So just like get back to the drawing board. What are we going to do for next year? How are we going to top this show?
And that's always the problem. Like, did you ever think booking was something you wanted to do when you first started even watching wrestling or getting into wrestling?
Yeah, booking's always been something that's been interesting for me. I'm part of like the booking team now. Just offering wrestling with a group who decides, but it's been something where it's interesting to see the stories, follow the stories. How are we going to make the champion? How do we get to the next bit? Is everybody involved? How do you have a show? What are your in-between shows? What are your like tentpole shows? You've got to have something for everybody in the audience on a show. You've got to think somebody who's never come, and it's quite obvious in Sweden, it happens quite often, someone who's never been to a wrestling show before. What do you put on as your first segment? Do you put on an interview with something to hype something up? Do you put a clean 10-minute match? How do you introduce this so that the person, first of all, wants to stay for the rest of the show, and that they are drawn into this and they want to watch wrestling in the future? So in Sweden with booking, you've got to have your stories, you've got to have something for everybody on the show, and something spectacular every show as well.
How do you try and finish the shows? Because I don't know what it'll be like in Scandinavia, but wrestling fans in general across the world are very impatient these days, and they hate surprises. They say everything's predictable, but then we'll go out their way to find out what's going to be happening before it happens and things like that. And I don't know if you'd have heard with the whole Impact Wrestling and AEW stuff where
I saw that.
and everybody was hyping Impact because Kenny Omega was on it, and then a lot of people was complaining, is that it? He hinted at maybe going after their title, and it was more character. It's like, but now it's making you want to tune into Dynamite tonight
to see what's going to happen there. And they've already said something's going to happen. We're not going to tell you what, but we'll tune into Dynamite.
And that's what I miss from wrestling. I miss from when I was a kid where it's like, I can't wait until next week to see what's going to happen, because
that was what was the big thing wasn't it? And we've been following Impact quite a lot. We've tried to watch some AEW, but I lose my patience with it. You're more of an AEW fan than I am. I like Impact.
I want to get into this. So why do you lose your patience?
Okay, so if none of the moves matter, if there's no consequence to anything, if you can do all these moves and everybody gets up and it's all fine, every single match, and they do too much every single match. I can't follow the stories, and it doesn't have the same consequences as like a couple of years ago. I was really into New Japan Pro Wrestling, like 2017-18, because I think it had a consequence, it had a follow-up, it had a story, and all the exciting action. But I think AEW has some of the story, some of the things. I mean, the things I like with AEW are the cheesy stuff. I like Chris Jericho, Orange Cassidy. That feud was great. And when they had the debates with Eric Bischoff moderating, I thought it was great. While I like with Impact Wrestling, I like the action. But what was his name? The Johnny Impact fella being shot and Tommy Dreamer saying, no. I think that's funny, and I want to see what's going on next, plus the matches in that as well. For AEW, I just can't watch another Young Bucks match, and I can't get behind the people who, for some reason, the ex-WWE stars that go to AEW. I get like with Brody Lee and John Moxley, and it's like, well, you did, and you had your time, and now you're here and reinventing yourself. Okay, I like more the people maybe are coming up from AEW. Like your kid who was with NWA. What's his name? He was the TV champion on NWA.
Ricky Starks.
Ricky Starks. I like him a lot. He's not been overexposed, and he's got like a lot of good qualities, and he's a genuine heel you dislike. So I like Ricky Starks. I like the NWA show.
I was going to say, did you enjoy Power?
I enjoyed Power a lot. I'm sure Nick Atlas as well is sitting there saying, oh, okay, AEW invading Impact. I'll just sit here with my title then. Because, I mean, he should be involved in some way. Why don't they involve the NWA as well?
I don't know. Like they've done the stuff with Thunder Rosa where they had the NWA Women's Championship, which you can tell that still has involvement from Billy Corgan because that's better booked than the women's division in AEW.
Yeah.
Like I enjoy the product, but I get your sentiment with the Young Bucks where they make every match look as if it's a massive like blow off match, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like I think the ones with Omega and Hangman, I think the one with FTR, I like those because there was a lot more of the storytelling. So with all the kicking out and all the different things, that was fine because they had the layers of storyline. But when they're just facing Top Flight or one of the new teams and they do that sort of performance, it's like
exactly. If it's on the pay-per-view show, if it's on like the Full Gear or whichever one, or even like the special they're doing with them, okay, fair enough, a few of them. But if it's like, because we can watch AEW Dark as everybody else can do for free, it's like when you're seeing all these hype moves on the B show here, and you've got like Taz who's not really caring and just joking about everything, wrestlers in the ring doing like a carnival circus act. You're kind of like, well, okay, if nothing really matters, the announcers are making jokes of everything. Why am I taking an hour to watch the show every week?
Yeah,
that's kind of what it got to me. Well, I was like, I can watch NWA, which is also free. They're trying something new. They're trying to do stories, and even on Impact Plus, they're doing like the 1 hour show.
Yeah,
and it's like a case of maybe less is more. Maybe have like a 1 hour show, take the thing seriously, and add on storylines. And the cheesy things are cheesy because they're cheesy, you know, it's that. But not having like, we're having Young Bucks matches and you should care about this, but I'm not sure why.
Yeah.
That's my personal sentiment. Maria has a different kind of view on it.
Oh, you brought kayfabe. It's Alice.
Sorry, it's Alice. My real name is Alonso.
Well, I mean, I think this has a bit to do with how wrestling got introduced on my part, because everything got introduced at the same time.
Yeah.
So I have no nostalgia about anything, which is unfortunately my loss, I think, in this. But that kind of is what it is. So I mean, I got introduced to the Attitude Era at the same time as I got introduced to AEW and to Impact, obviously, into Japanese wrestling, and everything was like mushed together somehow.
Watch this.
Yeah, exactly. Everyone, you should definitely watch this, and everyone's saying different things. So trying to make some kind of sense out of it. But no, so I think, and coming from a world that is very much movement mechanic organized. Yeah. I mean, you have. So I mean, I enjoy watching people do acrobatic moves.
Yeah.
That I either see, oh wow, that's fascinating. How did he do it? Or I can learn to do that. It's either one of the two usually. So, that's why I like AEW, because there's a lot of like fun stuff. It's like, oh, I wonder how can I maybe, how did I fix that? Oh, but he's posting like this. Oh, the arm go this way, but I have short arms, so that might not work. So analyzing the shows more than actually maybe watching sometimes.
Just grab Marcus and like, right, come here.
Yeah, well, that happens as well. So I'm gonna do this move, and you're gonna post for it. So it's a common occurrence. There has been blood on this floor.
There has been blood on the floor. Wrestling matches tend to shoot matches.
That has also happened. No, but I enjoy the storytelling, like other styles of wrestling as well. And I mean, if you can find the magic line where you have both, yes, of course, I enjoy that more. But I can watch a match or even a show for a specific reason and be quite content with that. So I think that's the difference.
We watched Clash of Champions 17 the other day. We watched the whole show, and you looked at it's like from October 91 in WCW. Yeah. But it had good matches the whole way through.
So how was your reaction with Sting?
I haven't
Give
seen
your
that
one first,
show.
then.
I've
seen the moment.
I've just seen the moment. So
no spoiler.
well, put it this way, uh, I'm not sure where they're going with it. I mean, I've seen a lot of the older stuff, and I think it's brilliant what it did.
Yeah.
The last match it didn't go that well.
The Seth Rollins one, you mean?
Yeah. So, well, it's going to be interesting to see where they want to take that story. If there's a smart booking, well, it probably is. It's going to draw attention. And I think that's the purpose. But will it be this thing that I would like to see? Probably not. I don't think that's possible, unfortunately.
I don't know. Like, I don't know what his injury extent is like. I think with what they've put on their website, it seems like he may be wrestling because he's got the win-loss record. And I think people say the same with like Kurt Angle when he returned to WWE. Everyone was like, he's kind of past it, but that's because WWE waited 6 months until he had a match. But before that, he was wrestling all over the independent circuit. I think he did a trilogy of matches with Cody, doing cage matches. And
he did like a farewell tour of the UK, didn't he, as well?
Yeah. I think that was my first Rev Pro show was him versus Zack Sabre Jr.
Yeah.
And it was... and he was great, but then WWE was like, no, we're not really doing it. And it was the same with Sting before Sting got to WWE. He was wrestling all the time with the guys like EC3 and TNA, and it was or Impact Wrestling, and it was working. So I think if he sorted his back, like if it happened last year, I'd have been more skeptical. But when we've seen Daniel Bryan come back, followed by Edge return, it's kind of making me think. I know he's 61, but could he get through a couple of matches?
That's the thing, he's 61. And I looked back, when did the Seth Rollins match happen? That was 2015. We're near the end of 2020. So not only did he have that spinal stenosis, he's 5 years older.
It doesn't seem that long ago.
It doesn't, I know, but that's the universe we're living in. Everything goes so quickly now. But yeah, it was 5 years ago. So he's now 61. I mean, would they be in? I mean, which doctor is going to clear? They would probably clear him and say that you can do something in the ring, probably not a whole match. Yeah, I see more. I mean, they have a lot of these kind of manager kind of roles in AEW already. They've got like Tully Blanchard and Arn Anderson. Taz has his team there, as we saw. So I could see him like leading a team of baby faces, leading it up to some sort of match against. I think Taz's group will be the people that they face.
He's so invested in this, he just want to admit he likes the product.
Look, it's my job to be informed.
I want to talk about your experience at Bodyslam then, because I know you both faced each other in Denmark. What was that experience like?
That was so much fun.
Yeah,
it was a good road trip. Yeah, the entire experience was fun. I was a bit worried going down though, because we had a match in Stockholm the day before.
Yeah, we worked the day before, different people, but we both worked on like a summer show the day before in Stockholm, like an outside the house show, whereby the show in Stockholm itself, not really everything went to plan. So it was an outdoor show. The people running the venue were like, oh, can you just do the show an hour earlier? The wrestlers who we were meant to be wrestling, both coming from different places, they were going to get there and they were stuck in traffic and late. So we're like, okay, we've set the ring up. We haven't gone through our match. So you can take it from here.
Yeah, I mean, I had time to, because one of the girls that I was working with, because we were doing a three-way match, I ended up with a handicap match instead, because the two heels against me. But one of them showed up a little bit early, so we had time to at least talk through a few things in the ring, but not even close to like going through the match. But we decided on doing a move that I've done sometimes, slice bread number 2, which is when I run up the turnbuckle and basically do a backflip thingy, but landing on the front bump. We had time to try that once. It worked out. It's like, yeah, all right, we'll know how we do this. No problem. She had never taken it before. I've obviously done it a few times before, but not to her though, and not in an outdoor setting, and it's a bit different.
Yeah.
So But we decided on doing it, and we talked through the rest of the match, but we needed to talk behind the scenes and made everything. Well, we started off, and it went okay up until that point, and the timing doing the move was wrong. So when I was on my way and vertical just towards the mat, basically, she started going backwards, which means I basically got a DDT, but a real one,
But yeah,
going backwards. So yeah, my neck took quite a nasty fall, that one.
Yeah.
So I was in quite a lot of pain going down to Bodyslam. I was like, yeah, I'm gonna do it. I was kind of rubbing my neck the entire way down. It's gonna work. It's gonna work. It's gonna work.
yeah.
So we tried to keep quiet about it, of course. But I mean,
Yeah, so I had a match as well, like that night in the gimmick, and then we got done with the show quite late, and we were like, I was like, okay, we'll be able to take down the ring, but do we have to follow the ring truck? And it was like, no, you guys have another show. So we did that show like on the Friday night at home, like 3 or 4 hours sleep, and then we drove down from Stockholm down to Copenhagen on a road trip and wrestling that Saturday night with your neck quite banged up.
Yeah, doing the same move.
Yeah, but then we had time to talk about it in the car on the way down. So we drove down to Copenhagen there about lunchtime. It was a beautiful sunny day. It was like the middle of August, 2019. But yeah, the guys at Bodyslam, so professional. It was so much fun down there. Hanging out with people, seeing people we've met before who've come to our shows and stuff like that, helping them film promos out on the outside. Loads of just fun times there with Bodyslam, and then we had time for our match there.
Yeah.
I think we had. But you wrestled there before though, hadn't you, for Bodyslam?
Yes, they had a all women's show.
Yeah.
When I was quite new. I think it was my 3rd show that I did.
Wow.
So that was really fun as well. That didn't quite go to plan, but it was such a good experience. I mean, it's always fun working for Bodyslam. They're, like I said, very professional, so nice about everything, and it's just a real pleasure to be there.
Do you feel like the way they promote on social media and the way they conduct everything, do you think that helps yourself for people to be like, oh, well, let's have a look at other wrestling out there, or for other companies to be like, oh, let's have a look to see what talents in these places?
Most certainly. I mean,
definitely. I mean, their graphics production, the time they put into making things, as you say, they're on all social media platforms. Many different streaming sites carry their wrestling shows, and the quality of wrestling and the people that they bring in.
Yeah.
I mean, so if you're putting the time, the effort, and the money in, it's going to grow, and people are going to see it's like, okay, what is the best wrestling in Scandinavia? And I think at this point you can point to Bodyslam as being the pioneers of that, really putting a good product out there.
Yeah. Aliss, I know you've done Belgium as well, haven't you?
Yes, Relentless.
What was that experience like? I don't really know much of Belgium wrestling, but
well, neither did I going down. No, I mean this is the first show of the promotion when I went down, and I wasn't supposed to wrestle at first. They were gonna have a seminar, and I knew because one of the wrestlers that's been very involved in Stockholm wrestling had moved there with his girlfriend, and he was in contact with this promotion and helped them out with stuff. So we're gonna have a seminar. I mean, would you like to come down? It's like, yeah, sure, why not? It sounds like a fun deal. So I went down for the seminar and then got asked along the way, well, would you like to do a match? It's just going to be a short match, you against, we're going to book you with someone that's going to be experienced. So it's not going to be like it's going to be a good showcase, basically.
Yeah.
And it was so much fun. It's a very different crowd, though, to what I'm used to. Because if you look all of the Nordic scenes, it's a very rowdy crowd. I mean, people are screaming and they're living it, basically.
Yeah.
The Relentless crowd was not like that at all.
You said it was more like a Japanese crowd, like in a way.
I think so. I mean, from what I've seen from look at the audience, for example, Japanese, I'm sure there's other places as well. But I mean, it's a very quiet crowd. It's a very polite crowd. They are interested. They are watching. They're very invested in what's happening, but you can't hear it.
Yeah.
And for me, still being quite green in this, not being sure what the audience, how their experience is, was quite like, it was a very different experience.
Yeah.
It was going to take getting used to, I think. But I mean, everything was really, really fun. And I realized afterwards, like having interactions with people from the audience or social media and stuff, that, oh shit, well, okay, this actually did.
Yeah.
It was really, that's just how that crowd is, because it's not a wrestling crowd as I know it.
No.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean they don't like it though.
Exactly.
So,
like Scandinavia does seem very much like some of the like rowdier UK places that I'd normally go to, and it does make me want to go there just because I like a good drink, wrestling. It's always good. I always remember going to one of the Progress Weekenders, and I was in the queue for, I think it was around 11 o'clock in the morning. It was like an early start, and the bar opened at about 11. So I was like, right, you wait there, I'd leave my mate, and there I am, just starting at like 11 o'clock in the morning after a full weekend of it. And yes, I really need to get over to Sweden, Denmark for wrestling. It sounds a lot of fun, but like, when you think of some of your favorite matches, and Alice, like, what are they?
my favorite matches.
Yeah, if somebody was to say, right, show me your favorite match, or if WWE or AEW came calling and was like, right, show us one of your matches, what match would that be?
Well, the Denmark one I really like for a lot of reasons. But I think, I mean, the Bodyslam one that we had. And I think that's both from what I felt we got out in the ring, but I think it's also kind of like my own attachment to how the trip actually was, like the fun in the car with everyone, and like the fun behind the stage and everything.
Yeah.
So I think if I'm going to send something to a promoter, I would probably pick the last wrestling match I had against Sixth. I think either that one or the latest one against Demon from the last There With Blood. I think it would be either one of those two.
Yeah. Why the sixth one?
For one, I think it's if I'm gonna send something to a promoter, somewhere else, it might be good sending a women's match.
Yeah.
In all fairness, I think that might be smart. Just from a business perspective again. But also, what I like about this match is when I had the match, I felt it did not work out for me.
Yeah.
I was not happy with that at all. And but when I watched it back, I actually find it, I really liked it. But having that in the ring and that feeling of the mismatch, I think that helped me distance it a bit, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So watching it back, I like the timing. I like how things worked out, and then even if there were smaller mistakes, which is always the case, nothing's perfect, and it shouldn't be perfect because then it's gonna look like plastic. But no, I kind of liked the dynamic of that match.
That match is one that like the Stockholm Wrestling group really liked as well. So they've put that one up free on YouTube with English commentary. It's kind of a showcase. It was from our last show, so that's been a really popular upload for us though.
Yeah.
I'll make sure it's in the description so everybody can check that.
Awesome, thank you. Ended up in the hospital after though, but I mean that's.
Do you want to explain that one?
Why were you in the hospital after?
Explain what move did it to you.
I think
if you say slice of bread 2, stop doing that move.
Stop doing the move.
Yeah. No, not on this one actually. No, I actually pulled a hernia in my belly.
Oh, nice.
On a 619, I think.
Oh yeah.
Because I kind of the ropes were a bit looser than I expected when going for it, so I kind of like mainly held on to one of the ropes, and I caught the other one a bit late. So I think there was some kind of imbalance because I felt that twist in the it didn't feel quite right.
And did you hit it?
Yeah. So this is all
She
good.
was
So
done
good.
after that.
No. No, but I mean, we continue with the match, obviously, and then all good with that. And then the day after, I noticed, oh, I have something that like standing out bulge, basically, middle of the belly, and I can't get it to go back. So I walked around with that for a week and hoped it would like settle itself. And then I actually went to see a doctor, and they did not let me out of the hospital until they operated on it.
The doctor was like, the hospital is this way. Do not go anywhere else. Go there now. And you were like, you sure? Now.
You're just there trying to... It's not going in, just trying to poke you.
No. I really tried as well. It's pushing back. But like, this is gonna work out. It usually does.
Well, take it up to Marcus then. No hernias, hopefully. Obviously, back end of 2019 and then going into 2020, you ended up getting a bit of gold around your waist. Not a hernia, but a bit of gold. Yeah. Beating, was it Betty Rose?
Right here, if you want to see. I show it off whenever I can.
Does he just walk around the place just wearing it?
It happens, yes, quite often actually.
Goodness me! Oh, here we go. All right, so this is the belt I won at the last There Will Be Blood show. I beat a very good wrestler for that one, Betty Rose. Beautiful the title there. Can you see that one?
Yeah.
Stockholm Wrestling Capital City Champion. This belt means I can go anywhere in the city. If I want to go where the king is sitting right now, taking a cup of coffee, I tell him to move out the way. That's my seat. That's what this belt means.
Then why aren't we doing this interview whilst you're sat on the king's throne?
I don't want to make the king look bad. Under Corona time, Sweden is under enough pressure. They've got to have someone to look up to, and I can't put him out of his place. No, so I won the belt there at the end of the year, and I've had one successful title defense so far against Dimitri. He's a really good up-and-coming wrestler. You should see some clips of Dimitri whenever you get the chance. Brilliant powerhouse wrestler.
Yeah, I'll make sure. So, whilst everybody's listening, like, just scoot over slightly, just so it's not going. So, for those of you listening, like, I'm not just dictating where they sit. For some reason, Skype likes to cut out part of the video, and I don't want them to be half and half. But, Alice, do you like the gold? Do you want it?
Well, it shall be mine at some point. Nah. Well,
that's what you think. www.shop.com. There you can buy yourself a really nice belt. It is
quite nice. It is quite nice. No, but I mean, it can be quite annoying at the breakfast table sometimes.
Breakfast table, as I call it, the Brexit table.
Oh, here we
go. If you do take it off him, I need that interview just to see the reaction. Like, his face saves a picture just of you looking at it, so I can't.
Yes, every booker hearing this right now, book that match, please.
Oh dear me.
Brilliant. So from this, we're going to have you in a shoot fight with Santino Marella.
Yeah.
He can dress up as Santina if it makes him feel better about it. And
I heard her saying bad things about Amanda Nunes the other day. Take that into consideration.
Look at that. It's trying to get you in trouble, so you're not going to take his title.
There's other belts to go after first. You know, you've got to work your way up to this one.
Well, that might be true, though.
So, an interview of mine released today, sir, with Copenhagen Hangman.
Yeah.
Obviously, with Dansk Pro Wrestling, created CCW, and we're speaking a lot of the divide in Danish wrestling. And he was saying he wants all the politics aside. He wants Danish and Scandinavian wrestling to build up. So I suggested some sort of super show where if all three of them to put on a show and then maybe look at the Scandinavian neighbours like yourselves with Stockholm Wrestling. Is that something you'd like to see? Like this hashtag ScandiGraps thing? Would you want that hashtag ScandiGraps super show where all these different companies put politics aside just to show how good Scandinavian wrestling is?
It would be so awesome. Yes, would definitely love that. I think there is an openness to that as well in most promotions.
Yeah.
As far as I can tell, all the promotions I worked in, I mean, I worked in all the promotions in Sweden. I've been to Finland. I haven't done a show there. I was booked for this year. Obviously, it didn't happen. And Bodyslam. I have not been to CPW yet. It would be fun to go as well. Unfortunately, I haven't worked out when they have shows. But I mean, there's so much good wrestling, there's so much potential, and there's so much untapped potential as well.
Yeah, definitely.
So yeah, I think that would be awesome. I think the problem would be, where would you have this mega show to like have the greatest setting
I'd
for
say
it?
you'd have a tour.
Yeah.
What do you do? I mean, you say like summer season, one week you
Yes.
have it in Helsinki, next week you're going to have it in Stockholm, and then Gothenburg.
Yeah.
Friday night, go down to Copenhagen, and then have the final somewhere else. I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, we did have the plan for the spring, also canceled for Corona, but we're gonna have a cruise ship
wrestling
going
cruise.
between between Finland and Sweden, and have wrestling on the way.
Oh, class.
We're both Swedish and Finnish wrestlers, and I mean, we were so much looking forward to that, and didn't happen, of course.
My missus, she doesn't like wrestling, but I'm like, oh, babe, I've done us a nice thing. I've booked us a cruise throughout Scandinavia. And she's like, oh, yeah.
Scandinavia, you're going to see these things, and you can just like write down all the things she's going to see and just do wrestling. And then she gets on the boat, and then like,
oh, these wrestling, I did not know.
Why is there a ring over there where there should be a buffet?
I don't know. It must have rings all over. I mean,
is this the way Swedish boats are built? I don't know.
Who knows? It's a different country. I don't know.
No, but I mean, theme cruises are a big thing in Sweden.
Yeah,
obviously.
it's
So,
like rock bands and stuff usually.
Exactly.
So wrestling is going to be, when this all starts, it's going to be a wrestling cruise, I think.
Oh, that'd be so cool. So if there was just that one show, or if you did the tour and then you've got that one big final show, who would each of you want to face? And you can't say each other, like, we'll get that one out of the way. Like, we don't want to end such a good thing with Aliss taking the title, because then it'll just put a dampener on for Marcus.
Well, if we could face anybody in the European wrestling scene, or that's a good one. Think about that one. I wouldn't mind, just for a personal standpoint, I wouldn't mind a showdown with like Michael Finn, actually.
Yeah.
Him as like a big baby face, charismatic, so much action. I could be the low down British, I don't think we wrestle in that kind of way. I'll show you real wrestling sort of thing. I think it would be a good contrast, and we'd be able to put an awesome match on. So yeah, Michael Finn would be a cool Scandinavian wrestling match.
No, definitely. Aliss?
I think if I look to the Nordics, I have my eyes set on Regina in Finland. Hopefully a match is going to happen soon anyway, as soon as I can get there. Fingers crossed. But there's so many wrestlers I would love to face off with. So I think I'll leave it at that for now.
Yeah, Regina.
And I'm ready for anyone. So
Is it Regina Rosendahl?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. She's hopefully coming on the show either sometime this month or beginning of the new year. So
you're gonna have such a good time with that one.
I'll let her know you've called her out, and
yes, please do.
I'm just booking your calendar. Nunes now. We've got Santina, Marcus, and now. Oh, brilliant! So to kind of like wrap things up, then, what are both of your goals in wrestling? Like that ultimate goal?
Well, so my one would be.
And I hope you've talked about this, and it isn't, I want to go live in Japan, and the other one's, well, I want to go live in
not far
England or something, and it's like...
My one would be, we talked about it today, just because I was down with the Corona stuff and everything I was being this year. It's like, the Isle of Man itself is in a separate quarantine thing from the UK, so if I was going to go to the Isle of Man, I'd have to wait 28 days, I think. 14 days the UK and then 14 days there. So one of my things would be to go back there a final time and have one big showdown match in front of as many people as they could like pack the place, and a really big name heel opponent that I could have and have a great match with. So that would be my one thing I want to do before the end of my career. But also I want to make a good transition into being a trainer, to being a top trainer for wrestling, because I find I've got a real passion for wrestling training and seeing young talent developing and seeing what they can be.
Yeah.
So transitioning to wrestling training / booking.
Oh, brilliant. Alice?
Well, I mean, I came into this business thinking, well, we'll see how far I can take this. And that's kind of still where I'm at. But I'm seeing like the roof is increasingly higher.
Yeah.
To be honest, I mean, there is a potential to actually do something with this. And obviously, I'm not 20. I'm a little bit older than that. But still, I mean, I have quite a few good years, I think, in this. Just as Corona blows over and can all get up to speed again. It's I'm looking forward to seeing more countries, and I mean, I would love to go to the UK scene. I would love to go to Japan. Obviously, both for martial arts reasons and for wrestling. It would be so fun going there and doing both. And I mean, there's so many. I mean, I met so many people from different places just through this, and it's like I want to go everywhere. Obviously, that's not gonna be realistic, maybe, but might not be that far off. Who knows?
No, definitely.
I guess the sky's the limit, and we'll see how far I can take it.
No, and I think like your style will complement quite a lot of the places here in the UK. So it was quite new, like during COVID, I kind of got signed on board with them with Fierce Females. Based in Scotland, one of the leading ones.
But that didn't happen either for Corona.
You was due to go there?
Yeah, I was booked for the summer. So
well, I'll message Brooke and be like, right, go on. we still need it to happen. But yeah, because I'm going to be doing like Fierce Females focus shows where I review with Aisha Raymond. We'll both sit down and review past shows, and I'll do different interviews that'll go on their video on demand, and hopefully I'll do some stuff more in person, permitting like my personal life if I can travel up to Scotland for a weekend or so. But yeah, hopefully like the UK, both of you come across and start working across here for a little bit. So I don't always have to go to Stockholm.
That would be brilliant. Looking forward to seeing you both in Stockholm and UK then.
Yeah. So where can people find you? And by this is released, I want you to have a Twitter account, okay?
All right. I'm making a promise to you now. I will fix a Twitter account. He's going to be so mad after the show because he hasn't got me to fix one yet.
No, this is true. Well, that's all my social medias then.
So, I'm encouraging her to take your title. I've got to make I'm sorry.
I mean, I thought I was going to be the heel on this show, and it's the presenter who was healing it up big style here.
I mean, at the moment, I'm mostly active on Instagram and a little bit on Facebook as well. Since there's not many shows coming up right now, I mean, it's usually pictures is a good type of content because I mean. And I like Instagram for that very reason as well. It's very picture oriented, and people have. I mean, you scroll through, but I like doing that myself, so I kind of relate to it. But I'll get into Twitter. Yeah, you have my word.
Marcus.
Yeah, so you find me on I've got a Facebook page, Marcus of Man. On Instagram, you can either look for Marcus of Man or MJShilling. So that's my @ and also on Twitter is @MJShilling.
Brilliant. Well, guys, thank you for coming on. It's been a lot of fun. I could have continued to go in for ages, but I think like
thank you so much for having us as well. We're going to have a Hull City Football Manager podcast as well.
Yes, we'll have to get some Football Manager content. Yeah, have you, like, whilst we're into gaming and, like, you doing the booking stuff, have you looked at TEW before?
I've looked at TEW quite a bit, and I play it quite a lot, and helped Adam Round, the producer, with a little bit of ideas for a few years ago, and might have done a few months for that one. Certain times in my life I've been very involved with it. Now I just play the game quite a bit.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I've not played the most recent one. I think I had a Mac for a bit, and the Mac doesn't allow it on there, so that was frustrating. And before that, I think I did like in-game 4 years, which is a lot of booking because I take it very. I had my Excel spreadsheet open.
Yeah.
I'd have my weekly
story.
story.
The game you put into it is what you'll get out of it. If you're just like, I can just quick book these people look good together, fair enough. But if you're like, right, I'm going to do this, then I'm going to go off for a run, and while I'm off running around, I'm going to think, okay, how am I going to book this, and then book next year, and then book for the next show. And then you go back and do it, and you're like, oh, I'm going to write a lot of stuff, and you spent like an hour and a half, and you've written one show. It's like, but you feel a satisfaction afterwards. It's a good show. It's a good game to play. Really interesting.
I always remember the road trips, and one of my mates who didn't play it, like, right, what have you been doing at the moment on it? And I'd just be telling him, like, at the time, again, Ring of Honor, I think it was when Adam Cole, Michael Bennett, and Matt Taven was known as the Kingdom together. And I'd booked a storyline of both Taven and Bennett eventually getting the title, and it was like a triple threat split. But I think that built over like 3 years until they had the actual divide. And yeah, I kind of got very much into it. So I've not bought it yet. I'm like, right, do I buy it? I'm like, if I buy it, it's going to cause so many arguments because I'm not going to do anything else.
Yeah, that's the thing. It does take a lot of your time. 20 I've played on the demo a bit, but 16 is the one I'm still playing because I've got a save or two that I'm not ready to give up yet. So I'll be, and I like the style, I like the layout on that one more than I liked on 20. But yeah, I've got a few, both historical ones and with the fictional universe there, whereby it's such a good way to get creativity out, and especially now when we're in partial lockdown and everything, then you can put all your effort into that.
Definitely. So when I do eventually start doing some like TW content, I know it's a call to jump on the show with.
Yeah, you can call me for that one. Are you going to start up a game on TW on your laptop?
Well, we'll see. I'm not quite there yet, I think.
You booked a couple of pre-show matches the other day.
Yes, and how did that go?
It went quite well. You got like a C-.
Well, there you go then.
I think please don't say yes, otherwise he's going to be so annoyed. But I think you should do it. I think you should book a full show on TW with us.
Yeah, you can start your own save on it though.
You see how scared it is now.
Right then, well, on that note, guys, if you've enjoyed this, make sure you hit like, make sure you hit subscribe, have a look at the playlist, #ScandiGraps, and both of you, thank you again. Like, it's been a lot of fun talking to you.
Thank you very much.
Cheers, go.
Thank you for watching. Thanks for listening.
Friday morning.